What's up YouTube? It is Joe from JCJB Gaming, and today I am going to start a new little series that talks about the sort of in-game mechanics of Pokemon games. So to start with, we are going to do type matchups and what they do to all of the other types. At the end of the video I will put up an image for you guys, or a table of some sort, so that you can pause it if you forget this. So let's get on with it. We will start with the normal type. Now, normal types are alright, they're middling. They do half damage to two types and no damage to one type. Apart from that, they do completely neutral damage. So yeah, it's not affected by much. So the two that have half damage done to them are rock and steel types. Obviously, if you just did a normal thing to a rock, it wouldn't really do much. So that's kind of logical. And ghost types, yeah, it doesn't do anything to. So they take no damage. Kind of understandable. I mean, you ever tried hitting a ghost? You just sort of go straight through it. So yeah, that's the normal type. Next up we have fire types. Fire types are okay. They have four types that they only do half damage to, but in the same boat they have four types that they do double damage to, so it kind of evens it out. The types that it does half damage to, it does half damage to other fire types, to water types, to rock types, and to dragon types, which is, yeah, it's alright. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, balanced out, it hits most of the more popular typings for neutral or more. I mean, dragons obviously are sort of, well, it does more. It takes less damage from everything because dragons are cool, and I mean, it's kind of understandable. So yeah, that's the fire type. These are going to be quite short as well, because I also want to talk to you guys about stab, and I don't want to go over sort of the time limit of you guys getting bored. So anyway, on with the thing. Water types. They do half damage against other water types, grass types, and dragon types. Apart from that, they do neutral damage to everything that they don't do super effective damage to, obviously, which happen to be fire types, ground types, and rock types. So pretty defensive types are wiped out by water, which is good. Waters are quite common. They're very useful. They can learn surf and waterfall and all the other HMs that are water type. Next up we have electric type. Electric types, they're okay. I mean, they're sort of middling. They do half damage to other electric types, to grass types, to dragon types, and that's it. So three types that it does half damage to. It also does no damage to ground types whatsoever. I mean, you don't get very far from electrocuting the floor outside your house, do you? I wouldn't suggest it. The police would probably think that you're trying to set some bomb off or something. Or they'd be really paranoid, at least. On the flip side, it also does super effective damage to two types, and those are water types and flying types. I mean, I guess that's just logic. So, on to the next one, which is grass. Grass types do half damage to fire types, other grass types, poison types, flying types, bug types, and dragon types. So they're not too good, but they hit for half damage quite a few of the more common types. So not incredible, but they do carry moves like status damage affecting ones, etc. And they're usually paired up with a second type that sort of covers those half damage. But they do super effective damage to water types and ground types and rock types. So rather defensive types get hit by grass pretty hard, which is okay. Next up we've got ice types. Ice types do half damage to fire types, water types, other ice types, and steel types. So, not too bad, not too bad. They hit quite a lot of the metagame for sort of neutral damage or better, but they do double damage to grass types, to ground types, to flying types, and they're one of the only types to do damage to dragon types, which is very useful. So when you're going up against Claire in the Johto region, or anyone else, then use an ice type and you're going to have a pretty easy time. We got fighting types up next. Fighting types are pretty useful, actually. Most of their attacks are physical, so try and use them against physically weak opponents, but that's just a suggestion on my part. They do half damage to poison types, to flying types, psychic types, bug types, which is they're also completely immune. Well, they're resisted immune hits from ghost types. So you try and hit a ghost type with a fighting type, e.g. punching it, you're not going to get very far. You're just going to go straight through it. But it does hit quite a few opponents for super effective damage, which is very, very good. So they hit normal types. It's the only type to hit normal types for super effective damage, which is good. It also hits ice types for super effective, rock types were super effective, dark types were super effective, and steel types were super effective. Dark, steel were two types that were brought in the second generation, so don't try and use fighting moves on them to begin with, because there is nothing to hit. Next up, poison types. Poison types do half damage to 4 out of the 19 types that are available for your use. And those are half damage to other poison types, half damage to ground types, to rock types, and to ghost types. They're also completely resisted by steel because you cannot poison metal. It has no life, obviously. It is super effective against grass though, so it's a very good way to take out those grass types that like to annoy your defensive Pokemon. Ground types have only 2 types that resist it, so do half damage. And those are, those are grass types and bug types. Apart from that, it does neutral damage to all except for flying. Flying aren't hit by ground types, no matter if they're special or a physical attack. So don't use them. Just don't, please. Unless the opponent is using Roost. Now that is when you can hit it for 1 turn with a ground type. So, yeah, it's not too bad. The 2 types that it hits for the many types that it hits for super effective, actually, are fire type, electric type, poison type, rock type, and steel type. So they're the only type that, apart from 2 others, that do super effective damage to steels, which is good. Very useful. Flying types is on the roster next, and they only do half damage to 3 types, which are half damage to electrics, half damage to rock type, and half damage to steel type. Steel types have half damage for more than half of their type matchups. So yeah, they're pretty good. Anyway, flying types, yeah, they're not too bad. They hit 3 types for super effective, so grass, fighting, and bug types. I'm not really sure how it's super effective against fighting. I mean, well, we'll let you argue that one out in the comments. But yeah, on to the next one, which is psychic types. Psychic types do half damage to other psychic types and to steel types. They do no damage whatsoever to dragon types. And yeah, hang on, I might have got that a bit wrong. I mean, just to dark types. I said dark types. Did I say dark types? Anyway, yeah, they do absolutely no damage to dark types, so there's no point in using a psychic move on a dark type at all, even if it's a special attack or a status attack. Next up is Bug. Bug is pretty bad. Actually, it does half damage to fire types, fighting types, poison types, flying types, ghost types, and steel types. So kinda sucky. But they do super effective damage to 3 types, which are grass types, so quite useful for taking out those annoying grass types again. 2 psychic types, they're one of the only types to actually do super effective damage to psychic types. And they're the only other type, except for fighting, that does super effective damage to dark types. So yeah, the only useful Pokemon to have on your team that's a bug is probably Volcarona from the 5th generation, but I'll do another talk about that later. We have 5 left. 5th is Rock types. Rock types do half damage to 3 types, which are fighting types, ground types, and steel types. So don't use rock types on that sort of Pokemon unless they're like choice banded with massive attack. They do super effective damage to fire types, to ice types, flying types, bug types. So yeah, they're alright. I mean, they take care of some of the less well known or less used types, but yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Ghost types. Ghost types are completely immune to normal attacks, which is good. Anyway, their moves are only resisted by 2 types, and those are dark and steel types. So yeah, I mean they're alright actually. They hit most things. They hit quite a few things for super effective. No, they only hit 2 things for super effective, and those are psychic types and other ghost types. So Ghost is one of the only types that is super effective against itself, along with Dragon. So yeah, they're not too bad. Dragon types. Rah! Dragon types are my favourite. They hit literally everything except for steel types and other dragon types for neutral damage. They do super effective, so double damage to dragon types, and they do half damage to steel types. So yes, very useful, always good to have one on your team, no matter what, if you can find one, because they're usually quite rare. So now we've only got 2 left. We have dark types. Dark types only do half damage to fighting types, other dark types, and steel types, so they're pretty good. I mean, yeah, they're quite useful. They do super effective damage to ghost types and to psychic types, so they're one of the only types that does damage to them. Very useful, quite difficult to get your hands on unless you got yourself an Eevee. Level it up, make it friends at night, it'll level up into an Umbreon, which is probably the worst dark type you will ever find. It's only defensive, it's stupidly slow. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. We're on the last one. That is steel types. Now, steel types attack are resisted by, so they only do half damage, by fire types, water types, and electric types. Oh, and other steel types. So there's no point in using a steel type move versus a steel type. They do super effective damage against ice types and rock types. So remember that when you're fighting the Regis in Hoenn or any other steel types such as Metagross. So yeah, for all you people who forgot about that, I shall put a video up now, and there shall be, not a video, sorry, an image. This will be the little image. This will have all of the type matchups. It'll probably be in the shape of a table, but yeah, it'll show you all of the attack types versus whatever. So yeah, you can pause that, have a look, write it down, do whatever it is you do. Who knows? The last thing that I would like to talk about in type-wise, before I go on to do the next one and finish this, is Stab. Stab is kind of explained in our first video of Pokemon Yellow, but I'll go over it again for everybody who hasn't watched that. You should watch it. Stab is the use, well, it gives you 1.5 times extra damage for every type that matches your Pokemon's type. So, for example, let's say we have a fire type. Now, this fire type knows Fire Punch, quite a basic move, but all of its attacks, so say, I think fire type's attack is 70 base. Now 70 multiplied by 1.5, give me a sec to do calculations because I wasn't prepared enough to do this beforehand. So we have a base 75 power, and we are going to multiply that by 1.5 due to the stab boost, and that will give us 112.5. So Fire Punch's move power goes from 75 to 112.5 if the Pokemon using it is a fire type. So pretty useful. I mean, that's used for every Pokemon. Every move will always be more powerful used by the type that is the same as it as the type's attack. Which sounds really complicated, but when you look at it, that's why in Pokemon Red or any of the games, once you've learnt your first, say, type move that's not a normal type, it will be more powerful than all of the other moves that you've learnt, usually because it's quite a new move. Anyway, so yes, that is Stab. Please look back if you have any questions on typings or Stab. I shall put the image up when I get a chance. It shall go up when I told you it will go up. What am I saying? Anyway, yeah, so that's about it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will be back talking about a different subject next time. I'm not particularly sure what it'll be. Probably effort values. So, hope you guys